We have Manjunath from My Notice Period. We have Arjun from Edge Networks. And we have Hari from HackerRank. So let's jump right in. If I was 25 years old 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I want to look for a job, I would go onto Word and get a template, put a resume up, go on to Naukri, and maybe send my resume out to some recruiters and to companies, and hope to God that someone responds. Hari, how has this changed? If I'm 25 years old today, and the future recruitment is all about these millennials, right? Yeah. If I'm 25 today, sitting in Bangalore looking for a job, how would this process be different?
It's completely different now, in the sense you can show them your real work rather than what you add in resume. And the way the company's mentality is also changing. Earlier it was like, get hundreds of resumes, search for keywords, and I'm going to pick the people whom I like from those resumes. And now there are so many platforms out there, HackerRank, GitHub, Google Summer of Code, where you can actually see the work done by them, measure how they have done that, and that gives you a better understanding of how much they can perform well when they join your company, which means your resume is not needed anymore. That's a word probably you should remove from dictionary, saying your work is what matters. Like, you don't need the resume. Can you join us on day one? Can you impact our company? Can you make a big change in your company? And that's what matters. So right now, it's not a short process like you mentioned. You got to start way early. You got to learn a lot of things. You got to build on top of that, build a very good profile in GitHub or HackerRank. I mean, the way I hire people is like, when I look at a resume these days, I remove that personal section and that extracurriculars and their core stuff. Just look at the projects they have done. And that's a 4 or 5 line stuff, and sadly in some resumes there's nothing at all. And those are the stuff I end up rejecting now. So it's the way you look at a resume itself has completely changed, and most often than not, I would not even look at the resume. Like, give me the online profile, not LinkedIn, like the GitHub profile is what I would look at.
Engineers, okay.
Yeah.
Manjunath, you want to add anything to that from your point of view? You have a very different, unique way of looking at this world.
Right. So what we very relevant for Gen X. So we've bought the average years of experience in our portal is people about 4 to 6 years of experience. And what we see with Gen X is completely different. So these guys, we ran a survey with about 9,000 people and had 1,500 responses. And what we saw is a lot of them, 85% of them are actually open to joining startups. This is a very different trend if you look at from what was a few years ago, where you would join startups when there's no other option. Probably you're looking for the big brands. But even from the top schools right now, people are loving to join startups, and we're surprised to see 85% of them are interested. And these guys are open to having multiple offers, decide amongst the best. So they're not like times where it's a job seekers market right now. So people get multiple offers and they choose from that. And so that's the kind of trend we're seeing with Gen Y right now.
So actually, it's an interesting point. The demand for talent today far exceeds the supply of talent, which perception-wise wasn't the case necessarily 10 years ago. Which means that the whole process for being able to recruit someone has to change. Most companies weed out resumes, but they're not able to attract the best talent. Arjun, one of the things that your product does was help people find the right talent fast. Sure. What should companies be doing from a process standpoint to be able to get the best talent rather than weed out the worst talent in their process?
So that's an interesting point. See, when you have large companies like Wipro, for instance, or Infosys, you have an internal database of about 300,000 resumes that are just lying there, and there's no engagement that you're building across that ecosystem that is static, right? So what I personally believe, ecosystem, one is I would disagree that the resume will go away, right? You have LinkedIn, and you're basically going to denounce the existence of LinkedIn if you're going to say the profile goes away. But the importance is, how do you connect into a LinkedIn profile, a GitHub profile, a Google Plus profile, and start getting information that allows you to engage with that person, whether they're an employee or not, right? Make that static database of yours alive. So you can get rid of the resume from your internal database, but you can build something that allows you to understand about the people who want to work in your company continuously, right? So engagement is a very important factor. And working with social ecosystems, they build it, they market it. Companies have to leverage it in the right sense. Today, what does one do with LinkedIn? As a user, as a consumer, what do I do on LinkedIn? I mean, I look at who's viewed my profile. I look at who I can connect to, right? I'd probably look at articles by influencers, which is a new feature. But besides that, what is my lifetime value on LinkedIn? Right? That's an important fact that I guess LinkedIn is going to address in the future. What do you do on Facebook? Right? So the engagement models across different ecosystems are being sort of socially moved by those social ecosystems. You have to drive value for employers, and that is us as companies, who are focused on the workforce optimization and talent acquisition space, have to mobilize those ecosystems to provide greater value to the employer, right? So I believe that really is important.
As we start looking more and more toward employers getting more actively involved in this space, one of the big things for them becomes how culturally you can fit in. Yeah. And the other big point becomes, how am I judging competency to a large extent? When we start looking at competency, 10 years ago, or even shorter, we used to do behavioral tests, competency tests in the office.
Sure.
And on the culture side, it was more of a time-bound thing. So you joined, and if you stayed for a while, you were culturally fit. If you didn't, you disappeared. So let's take both of those themes really quickly and discuss how things have changed when looking from a job seeker's point of view as well as a company's point of view. When you look at competency, today, Hari, I can do so much more than have someone come into my office and do a test to get a fit.
Yep.
You guys are scratching the surface of being able to provide more data to companies. What is 5 years from now, what will HackerRank be doing to do even more in this realm? Especially for guys who are so new that their resume really doesn't give them any real information about their experience.
I think what we should be doing is what probably LinkedIn and Facebook does for their work, not just the work experience, but to showcase the work. So I'm going to take an example of an engineer because I mean that's what engineering hiring is, what we are good at, and I'm an engineer at core. So you join a college and you're going to do 4 years. You finish your BTech or BE or whatever it is, and then you're going to get a job and work there for. There is a clear disconnect there on what you have studied and what you work. Plus, whatever you have achieved in college is not kind of connected with this. So eventually, what I feel is there should be a profile which starts with what I did in college, what are the technologies I learned, where I'm really good at. When I join the company, that gets carried forward, like what I learned in this company, what are the new technologies which I learned here, how fast I'm able to grasp the new technologies in this company, and assuming I move to another company, that's going to be carried forward. And right now, probably LinkedIn does this in a very crude way, where you can just put in your words, your experience, but that doesn't showcase your work. And that's what companies want to see now. So I feel there is a huge market there where there is a potential gap between what I worked in college and what I can showcase, what I worked in the current company or the first company and what I could showcase. So eventually we are going to have one profile or one, you can call it resume 2.0 for every developer. Like that is the thing. It's going to probably pull in data from GitHub, pull in data from Stack Overflow, Google Code Jam, whatever it is. And I think that will be the card to look at when you are going to make a hiring decision. It could be built by us, it could be built by someone who is going to take a different approach, but there is no standardization there on why some companies hire or how some companies hire. 5 years down the line, it will be all in a very clean and proper way. Like nobody knows how it's going to be done, but they know that there is something wrong here.
If you look at the other side of it, so this is one side. Now I have a lot of information from a employability standpoint, from a competency fit. How, in your circumstance, I have to make a very quick decision on someone.
Right.
I have the notice period to make that decision.
Right.
I have to figure out whether that guy is competent, whether he's culturally fit, and from the job seeker's point of view, I also have a very limited amount of time to figure out whether I do want this job.
Yes.
How do you bridge this gap in your product? And more than today, how do you plan on bridging this gap faster and better tomorrow?
Right. So one big difference we're seeing is the job size from the years, like Monster, Naukri. A lot of these guys claim to have 40 million, 50 million people on the database, and majority of it is IT. And if you look at the IT industry, it has 3 million people, of which, so then the 40 million is a lot of false data. Anybody who's dead or alive is on the database. And then within this 3 million, there's 15% attrition. That means only 3.5 lakh people changing jobs each year. Of this 3.5 lakh people, on a monthly basis, you have about 40,000 people changing jobs. So you made life so hard with these existing job portals where you're searching for these 40,000 people who are changing jobs and you're looking for them in a 50 million database. So it's a humongous task. You have thousands of recruiters trying to call people, find out, are you looking to join? Are you changing? You getting, like I get called from like 10 years ago, my profile in Naukri, are you still doing this? Are you interested? So there's no way to deactivate you. So the future of recruitment is going to be active job seeker side, where you would have people who are interested in changing job only for a certain duration. I mean, with India, with mynoticeperiod.com, that's basically what we've done. You have a short period. But globally, this is something that will need to evolve, where you have active job seekers looking out, and you're not trying to bother everybody saying, are you looking to change? Can I talk to you? And you're not wasting your time as a recruiter, and also making it a lot more efficient. So there is going to be a lot more efficiency that is brought into the hiring system.
So give us an example of what that kind of efficiency can be. So if I'm a job seeker and I've got a job offer,
right,
and now I put my stuff on my notice period,
right,
I got a month
right,
or so,
right,
to make, to move.
Right.
Company comes up to me. I mean, somehow I have to very quickly decide
Yes.
whether I'm going to go in this direction or not.
Yes.
And that's at the beginning. I might have only a couple of weeks.
Right.
And there's a huge element of a culture fit, for example.
Right.
From the job seeker's point of view as well.
Right.
How is that good? Because the job seeker is the one who's now got 2 offers.
Absolutely.
Right?
So
how am I making this decision?
Absolutely, makes sense. So I'll quote the survey again and just talk in context of these startups. So how does the startup attract the candidates? And what we did is we asked 2 other questions in the survey. The first question, how many of you looking to join startup? 85% said they love to join startup. The second question was, what do you see as the factor that makes you join the startup? The biggest one was to do with the kind of work you get to do in different functions, and also the technologies. And surprisingly, equity was 6. So if I'm a startup trying to attract these job seekers who have multiple offers, I would attract them by giving them good roles and get them to work on good technology. Salary is still important. Salary is number 3, but equity is not as important. Somehow in India, the equity is not attractive for attracting talent yet. And then we asked the third question, which was to do with what the 15% that said no, what is the challenge in joining a startup? And their fears were to do with stability, with poor infrastructure, and so these were the biggest factors. So we can overcome these by maybe showing them our workplaces, right? So we guys worked out of NASSCOM warehouse, and NASSCOM's done a lot of good stuff in terms of having an office which is world class. So maybe we could have got them there, and they would see the office, and then they would like to join us, because you're not working out of a garage. And then, so the infrastructure part is gone, but the stability is still something that people, fortunately, the 85% of the people are not afraid of stability. They've seen the success of Flipkart, Myntra, to various other startups, and are attracted to these startups. So attracting talent beyond, just the kind of salary that you have to offer, there is a lot more that you need to do as a company to attract good talent these days, and that would include all of these, understand what the challenges are, what are the attributes they're deciding on, and then pitch them accordingly.
Arjun, you're on the other side. You're helping companies decide what talent to bring on. Can you respond to that? Is that what's happening? Is that where things are going from a company standpoint?
So in one sense, the word, just we have integrated, mynoticeperiod.com into Wipro, who's a large customer of ours, primarily because they service that need. You're getting people in there faster. The representation is better. It's more curated. Obviously, Sanjeev Bikhchandani is going to sue you for saying that you have a lot of data that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But having said that, there's a lot of merit to that, right? What is relevant data out there in the databases has to be questioned. Your marketing 40 million profiles, do they really exist? Are they relevant to the employer is the question, right? So on my side, when I look at the value creation process from a portal end, I think there's a lot wanting. And I think they're hitting the sweet spot of providing people faster. I mean, I come from a startup perspective. I hear him when he says that people want to work in startups, but I guess one of the areas that hasn't shifted is the value of equity, the value of bootstrapping, right? People do expect offices, they do expect computers which work, function in say, a MacBook Pro, for instance. You wouldn't be able to give that up to someone in a startup environment, but the shift is that talent from good colleges, from good companies do want to shift into startups because they see the buzz, right? So the ecosystem has evolved in that sense, but has a lot in terms of distance to go. To answer your question, and let's shift to that 5 years down the line, what we would be doing is predicting things like attrition within an employee workforce. The ability to understand, one is what are demand skills, right? What do people want to hire, right? Based on opportunities that companies are looking at, based on data that's historic in nature, matching it with supply skills based on demographic data that is available, based on age groups, obviously location, based on visa status, right? Big thing for large companies is profitable deployment of resources offshore, on-site, because the profit margins are high. And visas cost money. And there are, to give you an example, 65,000 visas were given to, H-1B visas were given to the IT folks, right? 2,500 were given to Wipro, for instance. What about the rest? Can we bring those people on board into companies like Wipro and Infosys and start delivering that as a value proposition when we have the availability to look into that data? So that is the predictive nature that we have to move to because we're transactional today. Today I can look at a resume, be intelligent about it, mimic the human brain, and in 8 seconds flat, I can look at 100,000 resumes and do that, right? Match it against job descriptions. That's what I do. But that's transactional in a form, and it saves them time in terms of cycle time. But what the future is, can you make it predictive in nature? Can you move that one layer up? And I think that's where we need to move to, so that you become strategic to an organization, you become advisory to an organization, and not operational.
And how do you grow your product from a cultural fit? There's so much social data out there.
Yeah.
Yesterday, you would have known nothing about me.
Yeah.
Today, you know who I'm dating, you know what I feel about politics, you know how I feel about, I mean, there's so much information out there. It's difficult to crunch that data and actually come out with a fit purely through technology, but technology can take you a long way on that. Have you been looking at that at all, or is that something your clients are looking at?
So, yeah, clients are definitely looking at cultural fitment. They're looking at, obviously, psychometric analysis.
Using technology, I mean.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm sorry, using the data that's available without actually meeting the person.
Absolutely. So the whole thing is to sort of drive information before the person is sort of interviewed, right? There's data available out there, and if you can mine that data, and the data points, I don't think it's tough to mine it, right? We have a lot of analysts who are very capable of asking the right questions to drive a mathematical computation to get that data to make sense to the recruiter or the hiring manager, right? There's a lot of very good information, consumable information out there in ecosystems like Facebook, right? Your hiring patterns are going to improve dramatically if you're able to start breaking down that data from, say, a Facebook, a LinkedIn, a GitHub, a Google+, a Behance, and start making that sensible for people to understand whether the person would be a cultural fit, because you do know what the cultural fitment of the organization is beforehand, right? You know what the cultural attributes of an IBM are. You know what the cultural attributes of a HackerRank is, right? So you know what the DNA is. So from that, can you match the traits, the competencies, and the skills required from profiles?
Do you do that currently?
So we're building an application called Social Activity Analysis, which will give you a score that completes or makes alive the static resume and starts creating what we call a virtual pool. In fact, contractually, in our contracts with our enterprise customers, we sign out that we can, with the consent of the employee, connect into their social accounts and then build a virtual pool. So employee referral starts becoming a lot more useful through data that exists within their own workforce.
Okay, so I want to start talking a little bit about growing the pool of potential potential job seekers for any one company. And I want to start, with HackerRank, because one of the things that you're doing is taking away the check mark for
people resource, which is very costly for them. There's like, okay, this college, I would want to give it a try. And even if there is one person good from the college, that makes sense. So this is all possible now. I don't know why nobody built this in 2007-8. Maybe people were not thinking hard enough about this.
You don't want to get sued either, I think.
So that's the part which technology has played here, where it gives them time and people resources and all they need.
What's not there? So this is stuff that's happening. What's next now? How do we grow the pool even further? What needs to happen?
Still, there is a lot more to be done. One, from the college's side, they don't have the bandwidth to conduct these stuff online. So they don't have enough computers, let's say. So what companies do is like, oh, you have a lab of 50 computers. Let's take the 50 guys and do a test. And if they had 100 computers, they would say, let's take the top 100 and do a test. If they have infinite computers, probably all the people can sit and take a test. So the colleges would need to improve a lot on technology. They need to invest on technology now. The companies have done their part. They are ready to take up technology and they are ready to take these new things there. But the colleges are still stuck with probably 2004 mentality. And now, once that happens, it's going to be, the companies are going to make hire much faster. They can go to as many colleges as they want. And this helps, this helps both the parties, the colleges, the students, companies, everywhere.
If you go from college to having a job, Manjunath, you're taking a lot of job seekers and funneling down already to a smaller, more manageable range. Still actually not that manageable because there's just so many out there, but you're taking out the crud, let's say, from the system. From this stage, if you would need to narrow it down faster, but at the same time be able to have as large a pool available, which is a thin line, how will your product and other products out there be able to do this well enough for companies? I'm looking at a bunch of people already.
Yep.
Some of them I might not be looking at just for XYZ reason.
Yes.
How do you add to that? How do you give me more even within your framework?
Sure. So I would probably not take the example of the freshers or the college guys, but I'll take it up for, say, maybe the experienced guys, and how do you filter down these experienced guys that you're looking to hire?
And still widen your net.
And still a wide net, and then how do you narrow it down, and how do you rule out people and not waste your time? That's basically where we play as my notice period. So what we do is, beyond information that the standard job sites provide, things like, what is my expectation? You know that upfront. Or if you have an offer in hand, what's that offer in hand? What is your long-term vision, and what are the expectations that's upfront stated? So that way, you're looking at a pool which, and say you may have a budget constraint. So you might know that you're looking to offer a certain title and have a certain budget, but you find out that these guys have already received an offer which is higher than the budget. So then you weeding these guys out. So you're looking at everybody who's a software engineer with 2 years experience, but then you may have a certain budget, and then you upfront know that this guy has an offer which is higher, or he's at a skill set which is different. And so you can weed out or filter these guys so that you get into a narrow pool. So it's a question of getting the right data in front of you, which is something that people are more open to, especially the Gen Y and some of the more recent people, they're really open to providing this data. So use that and then filter out the right kind of people. That's basically where we come in with minority spirit, at least to weed out the right kind of people.
Are you finding, so I'm going to close on this and then we can take some questions, but are you finding that through some of these products and your own, I'm being able today to find people that I wouldn't have found yesterday, and I want those people to join? Or are we finding a situation where there's such a data overload that I'm even more confused today because I can't analyze this data well enough to help me do my job? I mean, not everyone has tools, and not everyone knows how to best utilize these tools. You come in and advise a bunch of companies to do it, and so maybe it works better that way. But am I getting too much information? Am I getting enough information? And how will information be better crunched tomorrow to make sure that this actually happens? Because a lot of this might be happening at some level, but it's not as speedy as maybe it can be.
So one of the most important facts is that we're quite myopic in nature because we're just talking about IT recruitment in one sense of the word. If we look at hospitality, for instance, I mean, a hotel group like Marriott hired 70,000 people last year, right? And imagine the number of profiles they would have to go through. Verizon looked at 900,000 resumes to hire 20,000 people. So there are industries out there that require services that go beyond the boundary of just understanding what the IT industry sort of wants today. And structured information is not available. So we work with the National Skill Development Corporation. They are funding partners. We are under the product innovation category, helping them build labor management information across 34 sectors, like gems and jewelry, right? Where do you have a resume for a person, an artisan, right, out there? So there are companies who are actually building that information today. Companies like Facebook are doing a great job in touching areas like Dharwad and Hubli, the interiors of Karnataka and other states, right, which is not centered around the urban area. Companies like Flipkart are showing the path on internet usage and propensity to consume across areas like Bihar, districts of Bihar. So the internet topology has improved dramatically because of various industries sort of focusing on it. Now you combine that into the hiring process and skill development focus in the country, we're sort of just tip of the iceberg talking about how we can take gender diversity, for instance, and start bringing it back, or taking real data and consuming it. There's not enough information that the employer is getting today, and that's a fact, right? Is the information valid is a question that we need to ask ourselves. So maintaining that validity is, I think, being developed across ecosystems that are social in nature. Companies like ours will start facilitating by sort of crunching that data in one sense, assessing the data in another sense, and sort of collating the data in one manner, and bringing it back to the employer to consume, right? There are going to be different tools, right? There's going to be upgradation of technology and predictions and analysis as we go along the way, understanding how we can mobilize workforce for the employer. But I think there's a lot to be done outside of industries that are structured in nature. And we need to sort of focus on healthcare, for instance, and how we get resumes across to sort of the right demand, because like you said, the demand exists, the supply exists, but they're not being met, right?
Okay, if you have any questions from the audience, we can take them and then I can keep asking. Is there any? Yeah.
You were mentioning about it, like when you started your career life, 4 years as an engineer, you study something, and then you get a job. About the job part again, once you have a social stigma also to meet with, like when you're in your S7 or semester 6, the first question is you're not campus placed or whatsoever it may be. So, I'm just asking, don't you think you should start it from the syllabus down route? I mean, you're following a syllabus that is like 10 years old, okay? I mean, hardly the things change, and you expect like out of the box thing to happen, and you have so much of demands. So where exactly don't you think it should go to that level rather than giving the company, make the setup, start from there? It should go from there, the students, or whatever you're grooming at.
I think that's something everyone would agree, but no one would do anything. It's one of those areas where I would say, yeah, then we need a change, but who should start it and where it's going to start. I like the fact that some of these companies have a center in the college, call it innovation center, or probably they use it for their own recruitment and stuff, but they tell the college that this is the technology we are using in our company and try to give it back to college students. So there is some activity happening. Of course, there is a huge difference between what you learn in college and what, I don't even know why I learned those subjects, but when I started a company, what I needed was something totally different. So thankfully, I picked all of them, while starting the company and running these things and making mistakes. Somehow we have to connect it back. If you ask me the answer, probably if you guys have, you can add.
So, I can take that. It is, obvious that it should start from the student body, but they'll never mobilize because they are the supply, right? We're all part of a supply chain, and demand and supply economics govern the demand determines what happens to the supply. And the course of education is going to change based on how demand dictates that. So you're going to see in the future enough pressure from the companies to change curriculum. What they're doing today is talent transformation within their ecosystem, which is then focused on training partners, which are a medium sort of right now. Finally, it's going to get to the university level where the curriculums are going to get impacted and changed to real-world curriculum. So today we're integrating into Wipro Coursera, which is one model of education online, which is a Coursera certificate is valid. It's a good course to do, and Wipro wants to use it, right? So we're integrating Coursera and Google Books to help people understand how to improve themselves with the skill gap that they have so that they can get the job that they want. So that's how the demand side is moving things, and they're open to taking things that are, open source.
So I'm going to have to cut this short. Actually, I think we need to, what we'll do is we'll do a question and answer outside if anyone has any questions. But I think we're very late, and I've been told that we better get off stage now. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.